Okay, so today what we're going to do is factoring harder trinomials. What makes these trinomials harder is that there will be a number in front of the x squared and it is not a GCF. So always check a GCF first, and if it's not a GCF, you have what I call a harder trinomial because the number in front of x squared makes it a bit more challenging. Now, cross-off box method, we're not going to do box method. There's several different methods. There's like the Surrey method, the rainbow method, the box method, but we're going to do decomposition and stick with that one. So just recall last time what we did when we had something like x squared plus 5x plus 6, we would do sum and product. So the product is plus 6, and your sum equaled plus 5. And so what we would do then say, well, what numbers multiply to 6? 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And then we'd check their sums. This one would add to 7, and this one would add to 6. And so we knew then that this was our factors. And we would say, oh, that's going to be x plus 2 times x plus 3. And then we could multiply it out and double check to make sure that those two factors multiply to that product. And just so you know, if you did multiply them out, you would get this. You would get an x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 6. And the middle two terms combine to give you that 5x. So it's easy for us to do this because there's a 1 in front of x squared. But now that there's a 3 in there, it's going to make it really hard to figure out what those are. And so what we have to do is decomposition. So what we do instead is we actually multiply those together to find the super product. Okay? So we find the super product, and I just call that the SP. So we find our super product. And that helps us figure out what the middle two terms are. So our super product for this one, okay, our super product equals 30. So 3 times positive 10 equals positive 30. So that's our super product, positive 30. And then our sum would equal 11, positive 11. So we do the exact same thing. This number is always a little bit bigger. What numbers multiply to 30? 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 4 and, doesn't work, 5 and 6, 6 and, okay, so we're done. So now we check their sums. This one becomes 31, this one becomes 17, this sum, 3 plus 10 is 13, 5 plus 6, the sum will be 11. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Okay, so now what we have to do, here's the trick, there's going to be some extra steps. So what we can do then is we can break the middle term apart. This 11x becomes plus 6x plus 5x plus 10. Okay, a little bit different than what it was on Friday's lesson. So the factors aren't so much factors as they are how 11x gets split up. Once you're done that, you could do it a different order. Okay, and I'll show that down here. You could go 3x squared plus 5x plus 6x plus 10. You could totally do that, and I will show how to show you they're the same later, and I'll answer that question. But what it kind of does now is it splits the question into two parts. We have a front two terms and a back two terms. So what we do is we take out a GCF of each term, each section. So at the front, we have 3x squared plus 6x. What's the GCF? Okay, I hope you thought about it rather than just stared and went, duh. The GCF is 3x. So we would have the GCF up front and the remainder in brackets. When we divide, we would get 3x squared divided by 3x is simply x. 6x divided by 3x would be plus 2. Okay. Then we do the same thing at the back. What is our GCF of those two terms? I hope you thought about it. So it's 5. And is that plus 5 or negative? It is a plus 5, although we don't have to write the positive. So we write the GCF as a plus 5. And what's the remainder? 5x divided by 5 is x, and 10 divided by 5 is plus 2. So what do you notice now between these two sections, the front and the back? You're right. Okay, that is the same, x plus 2. And what's in front? A 3x, so we write it here, and a plus 5, and we write it there. There you go. There's your two factors. Now, some people like to go, oh, I'd rather go x plus 2 at the front, so it's like another GCF, and then 3x plus 5 at the end. You're welcome to. Remember, these are exactly the same. Okay? So, there's the question answered. Now let's go and see. I told you, I'm not going to lie to you, I told you it doesn't matter what the order is. So let's check and see. What would be my GCF out of the front? Well, it would simply be x. And what's the remainder then? Well, I put it in brackets. The remainder would be 3x plus 5. And what's the GCF out of the back? 6 and 10. I think that's a 2. And so I go plus 2 because it's a positive. Okay, so this is a positive. That's why I write plus 2. And what's the remainder in brackets? What do you know? 3x plus 5. So again, we have x plus 2. Both of those multiply by 3x plus 5. So you can't screw this question up as long as you are able to break 11x into the two sums that add to 11. So you got to break the 11 up. And again, you do that by what? By finding your super product. Okay? You find your super product and then check to make sure you get the correct sum. Let's practice. Fun, fun. I love this stuff. It's so awesome. Okay, so we have 3 and 8, so we multiply together. So 3 times positive 8, our super product equals what? 24 positive. And what does the sum equal? Well, the sum equals negative 14. So what numbers multiply 24? Let's go. You do it too. Don't just stare. Math is not a spectator sport. 1 and, 2 and, come on, think, do it. 3 and, 4 and, 5 and, no, 6 and, no. So that's all our combinations. Those are our different factors. So let's check our sum. Oh, wait a second. Our sum is negative. What's the only possible way to get a positive answer and a negative sum? Well, if they're both negative. So let's just pretend they're positive for now. These add to 25. This adds to 14. This adds to what? 11. This adds to 10. Now, you probably notice, hey, I can get negative 14 if what? If these are both negatives. So there's many different ways to think about that. You choose whichever one you want, but we have to know then that the middle term is negative 2x and negative 12x. So what we're going to do now is split this guy up. Okay, 3x squared stays the same, and then we get minus 2x minus 12x plus 8. So the middle term gets split up by using our factors. Okay. Good. So now we take out a GCF out of the front. And again, like I said, you could totally go, I'll even show it over here, 3x squared minus 12x minus 2x plus 8. You could have these in a different order, and I'll prove to you, okay, after I solve this first question. So GCF out of the front, it would simply be x. So I would have x, and in my brackets I put the remainder, which is 3x minus 2. At the back, let's see, I have a negative sign there. So if I have a negative sign, I like to take out a negative GCF. So here my negative sign on the 12. If it's at the front, I'd like to take out a negative GCF. And I'm going to get, 12 and 8, 12 and 8, 4. Okay, no x's. So I get a minus 4. And that's why a lot of teachers get scared with this method, is because this is negative sign, you need a negative GCF. All right? And so in brackets then, when you divide, you got to be careful, but you get a 3x minus 2. It's important to see that this should be positive. And why? Because then they match. You can cheat a little bit. It's okay. So what's the factors? X minus 4 times 3x minus 2. Let's see if this is the same. So I'm going to go and I'm going to divide it by, at the front, 3x. So that's the front. What's left over in the remainder would be x minus 4. Okay. And what about the back? Divide. Again, there's a negative sign, so then I'll have a negative GCF. Okay. So if you got a negative sign at the front, you get a negative, so it means a negative GCF. And so I'm going to take out a negative 2, and I will get x minus 4. And so do I get 3x minus 2, bracket x minus 4. There we go. Exact same factors. Okay. So again, even though the order is different, what can you say? You can say that these are the same. Okay. Try the next one. What is your super product? So it would be 3 times negative 10. So your super product is negative 30. And what is your sum? Your sum is negative 13. So negative 13 has to get split apart. Let's focus on our super product. What are the factors? 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4, nope, 5. Okay, so now, okay, let's pause. We have a negative product. What's the only way of getting a negative product? Only one must be negative. So you're going to have a 1 negative in there because you have a negative 30. It's the only way to multiply to a negative is you got to get a negative times a positive. That equals a negative final answer. Okay, so we've got to be careful there. All right, here we go. Which combination would give you 13? Well, this one would give you, like, if one of them was negative, it'd be positive 29 or negative 29. If one of these was negative, it would give you a positive 13 or a negative 13. This one would also give you a positive 13 or a negative 13, but only if they're the same. But since one must be negative, it would give you a positive 7 or a negative 7. So you have to be careful with that one, didn't you? Because only one can be negative. 1 negative times 1 positive. That's why that didn't collect to a negative 13, rather a 7. Okay, so then I'm going to check my signs. This here would be a negative 15. Okay, and so 3w squared doesn't change. But now I get negative 15w and positive 2w minus 10. And again, like I said, those could flip-flop. It doesn't matter. You could get plus 2w minus 15w. It doesn't matter which order you put them in. Okay, so I'm going to go and divide by my GCF. This would be 3w. 3w goes up front. What's in the brackets? What's the remainder? Do it. Don't wait for me. Come on. W minus 5. Divide by my GCF of 2, and it's a positive 2. What's in brackets? Come on, do it. W minus 5. Hey, don't forget to pause and do these questions on your own. That way you know if you're doing it properly. Just watch me do it is not nearly as good as doing it and then double checking that you're doing exactly what I am. There's your 2 factors. Okay, next one, super product. Super product equals 10 times 5, so it's 50, positive. What's your sum? Your sum equals negative 27. So what are the factors of 50? 1 and, do it. Press pause and do it. 50. 2 and, 3 and, nope, doesn't work. 4 and, I bet you it works. I'm going to double check. Nope, doesn't work. 5 and, 6 and, no. 7 and, no. 8 and, no. So just these ones. Now, here's a weird thing, right? I'm adding to a negative sum. What does that mean? It must have negatives is what it means. Okay, so there must be negatives. That's the only way I can add. Okay, there must be negatives. That's the only way I can add to a negative number. But what does this mean? Because it's positive, I can either have a positive times a positive, or I can have a negative times a negative. So when you put this together, these two ideas, right? If it must be negatives, you can't have that. So since you must have negatives, then you must have this combination. Okay, so this would give you negative 51 if you had negative negative. This would give you negative 27 if you had negative negative. And this would give you negative 15 if you had negative negative. So here we go. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And so we get this breaking down. 10p squared stays the same. We get negative 25p minus 2p plus 5. So the 27 breaks down. All right, and again, you could have this in a different order. You'll still get the same answers unless you're doing a math error. So I'm going to divide by GCF. What's my GCF at the front? Think about it. What is it? It is 5p. So I write that up front. My remainder goes in the brackets. 2p minus 5. Good. Now, what's up front here? What does the negative sign mean? It means I have to have a negative GCF. So I'm going to divide by just a negative 1. Really weird, I know. But that gives me a positive 2p, which I want, right? You know why I don't do that? Because I cheated and looked over there. Okay, so there's a 2p, and then this becomes a minus 5. And another thing is, I want this exactly like that. So there's lots of things telling you, this is telling me I need a negative GCF, and this needing to be like that, those needing to be the same, also tells me I need a negative GCF. So my factors are 5p minus 1 times 2p minus 5. Okay, so these equal 10p squared minus 27p plus 5. Okay, so here's my two factors. Okay, some harder ones now. Here we have the b squared part. What does that mean? Well, what it means is at the end, it means that you're going to have an a here and an a here because of the a squared, and you're going to have a b here and a b here. This multiplication and this multiplication gives you AB terms. Okay, so let's go and do it. Superproduct equals 8 times negative 5, so negative 40. Your sum equals positive 18. So go ahead and do it. 1 and, 2 and, 3 doesn't work, 4. Come on, do it. So 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8, and then I'm done. So what is my sums of 18? Well, this one could give me 39, this one could give me 18, this one could give me 6, and this one would give me 3. Why? Because I have this, right? That means one must be a positive and the other one must be a negative. Okay, so I went and just automatically went with this. Oops, hold up, this, shoot, delete, 40 and 20. So why do I have to delete? It's because this means that the larger number, okay, the larger number is positive. So Mr. Barker made a mistake, didn't think it through. This must be my negative, okay? And so 8a squared, this breaks down into minus 2ab plus 20ab gives me minus 5b squared. All right, woo, that's a hefty one. So here I'm dividing by 2a, and so that goes in front. My remainder in brackets would be a minus 1b, and that is 4a rather. And what's my GCF at the back? When I divide, I get divide by 5b. That's positive, so plus 5b, and the remainder is 4a minus 1b. Okay, so my two factors are 2a plus 5b times 4a minus b. Okay, now what you notice here is that you kind of have an even number, and then an odd number. That means there's definitely no GCF. But if you look down here, we have 12, 14, and 20. What does that mean? There's a GCF that must be factored first. So I'm going to have to factor that one out first. Okay? So if you have that, not all the time is it just going to be like that, but this is one case where it's very clear. If you look, all right, so I can divide this whole thing. What? Well, I can divide it by 2. Can I divide it by 4? It won't work here. 6? Won't work there. 3? Won't work there. Okay, so I can divide it by 2. So that'll be my GCF. What's left over would be 6x squared plus 7xy minus 10y squared. Okay, so then I can do my super product. Super product would be 6 times negative 10, so it would be negative 60. And what would be my sum? My sum would equal positive 7. So 60, one end, come on, do it. No, seriously, do it. Don't just stare at me doing it, because that's not learning. 2 end, 3 end, 4 end, probably 15, I bet. 5 end, 6 end, 7, 8, nope. So multiplying to a negative but a positive sum, that tells me that I must have one negative, okay? So what does that combo mean here? Negative and a positive. I'm going to have a negative times a positive, and because I have this one must be larger. Okay, if I have a plus 7, my larger number is positive. So I can put my negative signs all down here before I even begin. This would be 59, this would be 28, this would be 17, this would be 11, this would be 4, and this would be 7. So winner, winner, chicken dinner right there. Good. So when I'm doing this, I can't lose the 2 and be a loser. I gotta remember the 2. How you do that is kind of up to you, okay? It gets pretty complicated if you continuously rewrite this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 2 bracket, 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 bracket. And so I'm going to try and skip all this step just so I have a little bit less writing. But don't lose your 2. No one wants to be a loser. So I'm going to just work here. I got 6x squared plus 12xy minus 5xy minus 10y squared. Continuing on, take out a GCF, divide here by 6x, brackets, I get x plus 2y. Divide here is a negative sign in front. What does a negative sign in front term mean? If it's at the front term, you got to take out a negative GCF, so a negative 5y. So a negative 5y goes at the front, and then the remainders are positive x plus 2y. So my final answer is 2, and x plus 2y, x, oops, sorry. I like to go this way. 6x minus 5y, and then x plus 2y. And so this is a total of 3 factors. Okay, don't forget GCF. Okay, good. This one here we're not going to do. This will be honors, and we won't do that. If you really want to know and show me, just ask me. I'll totally show you. It's super cool. I love it, but way too complicated for us this year. Okay, there we go. Takes practice. You got to practice questions. Come see me on Google Meet if you need help. You will definitely have like 5 or 6 of these types of questions. 4 easier ones, and then probably 2 harder ones where you have a GCF first and then factor it out.